He also made a number of paintings, and you have several in your collection, and this is one example of one of these depictions of monkeys in a sort of experimental attitude. And you pointed out earlier that, here he's given the monkey a lemon, and the painting's called The Sour Experience, and so...
He wants to see the monkey's reaction to this lemon as an experiment in observing the behavior of a monkey, and I guess to see whether the monkey's experience of the sour taste of a lemon will be similar to the human, what we'd expect a human being to express upon tasting something very sour or bitter.
Well, and it's so beautiful because he's couched it here very much in this old master framework. You have this gorgeous blue drapery in the background, this very finely worked lighter white drapery here. The lemon is almost right out of a 17th century Dutch still life.
Isn't it?
You really get it there. And then the subject being a monkey. And it's particularly compelling because monkeys did appear earlier in art, especially in the 18th century, but in a very different context. They were very much these figures of fun in 18th century French art especially. But here, it's a very penetrating study, and the monkeys are often shown in thoughtful, reflective poses, more so than active. And so there's really a sense of trying to penetrate that inner life and that sensibility, so they really are portraits. And as much as you can do a portrait of an animal, but it is very much that seeking to represent the inner life of the monkey through this depiction of him.
Yeah, and as you can see, this is no stock monkey.
Yeah.
This is a very idiosyncratic, individualistic monkey with a very expressive and I think unique face.
Yes.
And as I look at this, he seems to be sort of puckering his lips after biting into this lemon, and he doesn't look entirely happy.
Yeah, he looks a little suspicious of whoever gave it to him.
Yeah, his head is sort of bent in a puzzled state, right?
Yeah, and he nestles it against his shoulder there, which is, a little bit of a wincing reaction.
I love the reference you identified. I think an almost explicit reference to the Dutch old masters and the treatment of the work, though. It's kind of revolutionary, as you point out, in that way. You're presenting a monkey as one would have presented a Dutch portrait a couple of centuries earlier.
Yeah, he's used this context to very much elevate the subject matter, but in this whole series of portraits of monkeys, there really is that focus very often on the individual sitter and, in this domestic context, and they're beautifully painted. And so it's particularly interesting what von Max was trying to do with elevating the subject matter, as well as clearly trying to capture the personality of these very individual monkeys, which he knew well because he lived with them and interacted with them daily.
They were his companions.
Yeah.
As much as you might have a human companion, he had these monkeys about him. And I believe someone once told me that this monkey in particular was his favorite, the monkey that we see depicted here. It's really, as I said, a amusing looking monkey with these funny looking are those the ears?
Yeah,
those tufts of fur?
Quirky. He's very quirky. You can almost, you almost lose this sort of dark tuft of black hair that's on the top of his head that almost blends in with the background.
This is a monkey I would have liked to have met.
Yeah. He definitely looks like a monkey with a lot of personality, which may more true than most portrait sitters. So.
On a technical level, I love his treatment of the pigment. There are these kind of looser brushstrokes down here at the bottom in this white part of, I guess you'd call that the drapery, but it makes it a really kind of very dynamic kind of picture to me.
Yeah, but I think the palette's beautiful. I think it's very lively, and it's just interesting to see how he approached these portraits because there isn't so much of a basis of where to start from, and I think that they become very intriguing. At first it's somewhat of a surprise, but when you consider it further and how deeply he was intrigued by Darwin's ideas, and to the point of breeding and living with monkeys and studying them to this degree, and really trying to comprehend them as individuals through painting them. it says a lot about the depth of thought that von Max applied to the subject.
That is amazing, because I think we can say that there was no other artist in the late 19th, early 20th century who devoted himself to this subject matter really in any significant way other than von Max. And I mean, obviously, the theories of Darwin affected the art world as they did every aspect of human intellectual and creative endeavor, but I know of no other artist who embraced the theories of Charles Darwin as sort of the ongoing theme of his or her work, like von Max did. Unfortunately, as I think I said at the beginning of our conversation, after his death, this truly original and unique and creative thinker and an expressive artist drifted into obscurity. Outside of Germany, he's relatively unknown. I mean, he's not a name that 99.99% of Americans would recognize.
But he's having a resurgence because, you know, he's been represented in a number of exhibitions lately. Right?
And the reason for that, in part, is because 2009, just last year, was the 200th anniversary of the birth of Charles Darwin and the 150th anniversary of the publication of On the Origin of Species, Darwin's seminal work. And that has given impetus to re-examining the influence of Darwin and his theories upon the visual arts. And who is probably the greatest example of that, the most explicit example of that? Gabriel von Max and his monkey paintings. And so, in fact, I think, as I've told you, there's going to be the first, what would you call it, a monographic exhibition
Yes.
of his work in modern times at the Lembach House Museum in Munich, opening next October of 2010. So that's quite exciting, and I understand they're going to examine every aspect of his career.
Well, that's wonderful because, you know, when there's sometimes thematic exhibitions that allow you to, you know, show a few works by an artist, and then you sort of realize doing the research, wow, there's so much more here. He's really interesting.
Exactly.
I need to put this aside, but this is something we need to return to. And I think the fact that, you know, the time has come to really reassess von Max as an artist it's really going to be interesting to see that work, you know, come together and to have a clearer picture of what was happening, not only with von Max, but also in Munich at that time, because it definitely is a period, that sort of last quarter, especially of the 19th century, that people are a little less clear on what happened before German Expressionist movement and before the First World War. So,
and even though he was very much an idiosyncratic artist, just as this is an idiosyncratic monkey, he was still very much a part of his time and the Munich scene.
And widely known, exactly. You know, so I think it's wonderful to be able to look forward to that show and get a better sense of von Max as a whole. But I have to say, no matter what they come up with, I think the monkeys are my favorite.
Yeah. What could be more fun than a gallery full of paintings of monkeys?
I think that sounds pretty good.
Showing human expressions and behaviors. I mean, that's a crowd pleaser. That's a winner.
Yes. You can't go wrong.
And I can't